Hey folks, welcome back. Swamp terrain was first introduced in Heroscape's second master set back in 2007, which served as its only source for nearly 20 years. However, these dark green tiles have recently made a comeback. Today we're going to wade into the murky waters of the Swamps of Valhalla. Right up front, this video was sponsored by Renegade Game Studios, who were kind enough to send me this terrain expansion set for free. I'm really glad they did, because I must admit, I wasn't planning on getting this one myself. I have a lot of swamp terrain from Heroscape's original run, so a reprint didn't really appeal to me. That being said, there are some new elements in here that are noteworthy, so let's take a look at the contents together. Here's all of the swamp grass terrain included within. We received 2 copies of the 24 hex, 3 hex, 2 hex, and 1 hex tiles, while we get 5 copies of the 7 hex tiles. This is a nearly identical breakdown to that of the Swarm of the Morrow master set from way back when. I have heard a number of competitive map makers lament the fact that there aren't many single hex tiles included here, but as I pointed out already, that was a precedent set by Heroscape, not Renegade. I think it's a bit of an unfair criticism, though I can understand the frustration. Personally, I prefer building with larger tiles. It speeds up the map construction phase significantly when you don't have to place multiple 1 hex tiles all over the place. Many of the maps I designed to be taken out to local events don't use a single 1 hex tile in them in order to speed up setup and takedown. I prefer less granularity in map making, but your mileage may vary. Swamp grass has no special gameplay effects. It functions identically to the regular grass, rock, or sand tiles from any other set. Aesthetically though, its dark green plastic with pine-colored paint applications make for a great way to break up the visual flow of a map, and can be used to effectively convey the setting of a marsh or forest floor. Of the original 3 terrain types, I think grass was my least favorite visually, so I oftentimes find myself using swamp terrain as a stand-in for it, in order to create maps that have a less toyetic, more moody atmosphere. Swamp terrain paired with evergreen trees and road hexes is just peak Heroscape visual design to me. Love it. In addition to the swamp grass terrain tiles, the Swamps of Valhalla set also contains swamp water tiles in 2 variations. There are 21 hex swamp water tiles and 3 hex swamp water tiles included within. The 1 hex tiles are mundane and common enough, but the 3 hex tiles are brand new to this release. Mechanically, swamp water functions differently to normal water in the game. You don't have to stop your movement when entering it, like you do with normal water, but it does confer all of the normal benefits water can provide to an army card with an ability that utilizes it. For example, Iwashia can still use her Twister special attack when she's within 1 space of a swamp water tile, not just a regular water tile. Unfortunately, the opposite is not true, so the Morrow Drudge cannot use their swamp water strength power while standing on normal water. Swamp water can be treated as normal water, but normal water cannot be treated as swamp water. Swamp water has always been kind of thematically weird to me, as I would imagine one would move slower through swamp water than regular water, but that's not how they mechanically function. Maybe swamp water is meant to represent marshy wetlands, something that will surely get your socks wet, but not waist-deep rivers to ford. The last thing included in the set are a pair of swamp underbrush pieces. These bushes are identical in shape and function to those found in the Lower Jungle Terrain expansion, but they add some color in the form of pale orange and yellow leaves. I really dig the visual pop they bring to a map. Additionally, they seem to have corrected a molding issue that was present in the original Lower Jungle set. Essentially, the bases of the Lower Jungle trees were molded too thick to properly interlock with hexes below them. The issue was later corrected on subsequent production runs, and I'm glad to see it reflected here as well. Functionally, underbrush pieces like these can help block line of sight to hide figures behind, but they also have a more codified effect on gameplay too. If a small, medium, or large figure adjacent to a jungle bush piece is defending from a non-adjacent attack, they add 1 die to their defense roll. This effect can really help melee armies make their way across a battlefield. Just be careful where you place these when designing your map though. You don't want to give ranged attackers a position where they can gain height and benefit from the underbrush defense bonus. Though, that being said, Heroscape's terrain rules are always optional, depending on the setting. Sometimes you just want to build something that looks good, or utilize Heroscape terrain for a different game system entirely. The way that Renegade Game Studios has chosen to separate and package many of their new terrain sets is really quite smart, in my opinion. Would you believe me if I told you that besides the Fortress of the Archcree set back in the day, these new terrain expansion sets are the first time Heroscape hexes have been sold separately without figures? It seems like such a no-brainer to me, but apparently it took 20 years to come up with this idea. So that's everything included within the Swamps of Valhalla terrain expansion. But because I apparently like to make things overly difficult for myself, I couldn't stop there. Instead, I decided to recreate my favorite scenario from the original Rise of the Valkyrie Master Set, using the components found within this kit and the Lands of Valhalla terrain expansion too. This is the Trollsford Swamp. Balanced it is not, but I played the Toxic Mist scenario over and over as a kid. Even now, I still have a lot of fun with it, though I've certainly come to realize how heavily favored to win the player in the south is. Great fun, and if you want to build it yourself, I've created instructions that I'll link in the description below. Happy building. With that, I want to thank you for watching. I've been your host, RR Slugger, and until next time, happy scaping.